Greetings and welcome to the 2021 Global Ties US National Meeting. I'm Barbara Stevenson, Vice Provost for Global Affairs at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and a proud member of the Global Ties US Advisory Council. So why do I support Global Ties? Because I know from my 34 years as an American diplomat just how much exchange matters. There is nothing quite like exchange to build out the network of partners around the world that are so fundamental to effective diplomacy. When I needed partners to work with on our shared goal of better policing in Northern Ireland, I turned naturally to those stakeholders we had thoughtfully chosen for an exchange visit to the US to study successful community policing in American cities. You know, it certainly didn't hurt that those exchange visitors had also experienced the warmth of home hospitality and the simple pleasures of a shared meal. To all of the citizen ambassadors in the Global Ties Network who host international visitors, please accept my profound gratitude for all you do to create these memorable experiences for our visitors and to make effective American diplomacy possible. I am so pleased to have this chance to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Global Ties Network with you, even if only virtually. I really want to tip my hat to Katherine Brown, to the State Department, and the whole network for figuring out a way for an organization like ours, an organization built on one handshake at a time, one shared meal at a time, to figure out how to sustain our vital exchange work, even in the midst of these most challenging of times. Let's make resilience and adaptability be part of what we celebrate together as we mark the 60th anniversary of Global Ties. And now, it is my great honor to introduce the opening plenary session for the 2021 Global Ties US National Meeting.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Miller, President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Seattle and Chair of the Board of Directors of Global Ties US. And I have the privilege today of welcoming you all to the 2021 Global Ties National Meeting. Now, this national meeting looks a bit different than our normal gathering. I should be standing in front of a podium on a stage in DC, looking out in an audience of more than 1,000 people, all of you, who are part of this rich network that make exchanges happen. But like you all, I'm sitting at home, a place I have barely left in over a year. So this year, I'm missing seeing all your faces, missing bumping into old friends as we move between sessions, and missing celebrating in person another year of creating meaningful connections through the power of international exchange. It has been a year of momentous challenges. So much has been disrupted, and so many have been lost. But it is also a year where we, as a network, have shown incredible resilience, strength, and determination. With the strong support of the State Department, this network has adapted, it has innovated, and there are many successes to celebrate. And one success I want to acknowledge right off the bat is that we are having a national meeting. I am so impressed with what the Planning Committee has in store for us. And although we're virtual, this meeting is still going to have the rich content you would expect. There are going to be opportunities to connect with one another, to learn from one another. We're still going to engage with the diplomatic community, and we're going to hear from inspiring leaders and our IBLP alumni. I want to extend sincere thanks to Janet Norton, Chair of the National Meetings Planning Committee, and the entire committee for their work in planning 18 breakout sessions and 2 workshops. We've also got some wonderful conversations in store coming up in our plenary sessions, and those sessions are going to align with the key priorities of the Biden administration, promoting diversity and inclusion, and racial equity and justice, fighting climate change, and strengthening democratic institutions and civic participation. To all of these themes and the 10 foreign policy briefing sessions, we'll be discussing why exchange matters to each of them and why exchange matters in your communities. And I want to thank Secretary of State Tony Blinken and Special Envoy John Kerry for joining us, as well as all of our friends at the State Department who are here at the meeting and who we get to work with. The commitment that they showed to international exchanges and the strong bipartisan support on Capitol Hill emphasized the importance of our work and our network, and reinforces that diplomacy begins here, in each of our cities, in each of our towns, with our citizen diplomats. This year, of course, also marks the 60th anniversary of Global Ties US. And when it was founded in 1961 as COSERV, President John F. Kennedy wrote, "I am convinced that increased participation by dedicated Americans in international exchanges will help us to achieve our common hope for a durable and just peace." Over 60 years, the name of Global Ties may have changed, evolved to better reflect the mission. But the mission and that work has not changed. It is to power individuals, communities, and nations to build trust and advance peace and prosperity through international exchange. The brief quotation I just read from President Kennedy talked about dedication, and I want to focus on that for just a minute. I have long known how dedicated everyone in this network is to promoting international exchanges, from our colleagues in the State Department to the NPAs, to the CBMs, and our community resources and home hosts who open their doors gladly to welcome our international visitors. But when public safety mandated that our in-person visits be suspended, we kept exchanges going anyway, informally at first by connecting with alumni in our community resources, and then formally. As a network, we pivoted, we adapted, and we innovated, and we succeeded. We took advantage of technology to keep IVLP delegations coming virtually, connecting them with professional resources and our communities over Zoom. We visited with IVLP alumni in their homes and in their offices, and we connected more deeply with each other. I've had more conversations with my peers in the last year than at any other time, and I am extremely grateful for the intense dedication everyone has had, no matter how hard it has been. And it has been hard to keep going. In the past year, NPAs and CBMs have worked together to navigate the challenges of the pandemic, working with the Office of International Visitors at the State Department and with Global Ties to rapidly and successfully implement virtual exchanges and to work together to be prepared for when we can return to in-person programming. And we will return to in-person programming. I so miss being able to welcome international visitors to Seattle, and our citizen diplomats miss breaking bread with our visitors from around the world, that warm hospitality. And I know these sentiments are shared across the network, but I also know that when the pandemic is behind us, when it is safe to once again open our doors to the world, we will be ready. And I want to take a second to thank my fellow CBM leaders for their support. I have seen terrific camaraderie across the CBMs as we come together frequently over informal Zoom sessions to compare best practices, to boost each other up, and to ask for help, which is always readily given. The challenges of the past year have made it clear that our exchange network has never been more important, and the mission has never been more relevant. Exchange matters. Before introducing Anne Grimes, I do want to give a word of thanks. Actually, we need to give them many, many words of thanks to the amazing team at Global Ties. It is truly my privilege as a board member to support Katherine Brown and her team as they have supported us in new ways over the course of this past year. And then there's the challenges of moving this meeting to a virtual platform. Those challenges are significant, but they have done it with grace and professionalism. I know we are in store for a wonderful first all virtual national conference celebrating the successes of the past year and celebrating 60 years of connections that build a more prosperous world. And although we're in for a jam-packed 5 days of virtual conferencing, I sincerely hope that this is both our first and our last national meeting. I look forward to seeing you all over the course of the next 5 days, and I'll see you next year in DC. I'll now turn it over to Anne Grimes, Director of the Office of International Visitors at the U.S. Department of State, with my profound thanks for the support that she has given to the network over her tenure. She's a tremendous advocate, and I'm really looking forward to her and Katherine Brown's fireside chat later today. Anne, over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. It's so great to be here with all of you today to kick off the 2021 national meeting. A year ago, I don't think anyone could have imagined we would be doing this virtually, but there are so many things we never imagined a year ago. In March of last year, I started sending weekly messages to my team in the Office of International Visitors as a way to stay connected and encourage open communication in this new virtual world. I'm sure that many of you found your own ways to keep your teams connected and supported. I recently read through the messages, and what a story they tell. From figuring out Zoom to renovating my kitchen, I think I've come a long way, and so have we all. I want to start by thanking everyone for your dedication and efforts in 2020 that led us to where we are today. Each one of you involved with the IVLP has been a part of this journey, and you should all pat yourselves on the back for what we've accomplished together. Since the start of the pandemic, you've programmed nearly 200 virtual projects and alumni activities. That's a tremendous number, especially considering that we didn't begin with virtual programming until halfway through the year. And given the additional challenges that were occurring at the same time in our personal lives and in our communities. I have said time and time again that this transition to IVLP virtual has required resiliency, ingenuity, and creativity. You have all displayed these qualities. And creativity abounds. A virtual home hospitality included a scavenger hunt, where participants were asked to search and find items in their homes to then share and discuss. We also now have a new IVLP cultural activity to add to the list, an escape room experience where groups work on puzzle solving. After a virtual tour of solar installations at the University of Utah campus and rooftop views, a participant commented, "It was such an inspiring tour. After all, when you actually see something, as we did in Utah, your mind processes it differently and better." This successful shift to a virtual model has required input from all roles and all talents and tremendous collaboration. The Office of International Visitors staff, National Program Agency staff, community-based members, and interpreters and liaisons, you have all worked together over months and months to continue to make the virtual experience the best it can be. This collaboration has made us stronger. Thank you to Global Ties for thinking creatively about fostering communication among the network during this time. The Learning Labs and the monthly Diplomacy Zooms Here series contributed to our sense of community as a network and as a program. We owe a lot of thanks to the individuals who came together as part of the Forward Planning Working Group late last spring. We had no idea what this effort would involve at that time, and we truly appreciate the time and energy involved in getting us to the point where we are today. A follow-on virtual programming champions group has been instrumental in keeping up the sharing of best practices and providing avenues for support and communication. Thank you all. To Katherine and the Global Ties team, thank you for quickly and swiftly launching the Virtual Exchange Academy. The feedback has been positive, and I do hope that the skills will be transferable and applicable to the community-based members' overall operations. We appreciate the time this has taken. We appreciate our federal agency and DC government colleagues, many of whom are joining us this week, for your willingness to engage with IVLP participants virtually. This collaboration demonstrates the whole of government approach to this exchange program, as well as to bringing the world closer together. To all of our partners, thank you for leaning in when it could have been just as easy to lean out. The world has changed. We will not be the same going forward. Yet through all the challenges, exchanges offered a critical outlet for people to continue to connect and collaborate on global issues. There's no doubt that we will take these lessons and virtual tools with us into the future. So that's where we've been this past year. Now you may be thinking, where are we going? As we've said many times, nothing can replace in-person exchange programs. We know that, and each of us knows that we want to and will get back to bringing participants to your communities. But we're not going to do that until all conditions are right. For now, we're staying the course and continuing with primarily virtual IVLP projects through September 2021. At the same time, we're exploring under what conditions it might be possible to program small in-person projects. Thank you to all of the community-based members for taking the time to complete the extensive survey on restarting in-person projects, and for our national program agencies for sharing valuable feedback. It's critical for us to know what's happening in your communities. You are the experts in your community when it comes to resources for programming, and this is no different. I want to emphasize that safety is the number one priority in all of this. The health and welfare of you, your staff, participants, and members of your communities are of utmost importance. Whether virtual or in person, the IVLP will continue to reflect the foreign policy goals of the administration, and you will have a chance to hear from my Department of State colleagues and others on several of these topics: climate change, global health, strengthening democratic institutions, as well as the priorities and initiatives in each geographic region of the globe. I'd like to share some of the other things we're working on in the Office of International Visitors. We've used this time to move forward with technology enhancements that will improve the program. Thanks to our technology team and a group of very committed representatives from the network, we are due to roll out an IVLP digital program book in the coming months that will be accessible on any personal mobile device and will allow participants to access real-time updates about their project itinerary. That last-minute change in location or meeting host will no longer need to be emailed, but instead will appear in the digital program book. I'm excited for this development as it will certainly save time and resources for everyone. We're also very grateful to Global Ties for launching the first ever CBM Best Practices Guide last week. This one-stop shop includes programming policies, best practices from around the network, and resources for CBMs. Whether you're new to the network or have been doing this work for decades, I encourage you to take a look and bookmark it. As you'll hear throughout the week, the shift to virtual provided an opportunity to engage with IVLP alumni participants. We know you all are doing this often in your own ways, and you created some wonderful events that brought alumni in your communities together to discuss important issues. It's critical for us to continue to keep these connections alive. The IVLP is a conversation starter. When we foster these relationships, the outcomes are beneficial to all of us. And that's why we launched an alumni salon series last year on a variety of topics. We plan to continue that model in 2021. In addition, we're working on developing an IVLP classroom initiative that aims to connect IVLP alumni directly with schools and classrooms. Thank you also for your help in informing this initiative through the recent CBM survey and for sharing your best practices so we can improve on the foundations you've built. The national meeting session on educational diplomacy will discuss the initiative. We look forward to launching it soon. One way to help us amplify these great alumni stories is through our Bureau's Voices of Exchange podcast series, which was formerly known as 22.33. This podcast highlights ECA alumni stories in creative ways. We encourage you to listen and share with your communities and networks. Finally, our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are at the forefront of our thinking every day. As we look to the future of IVLP, the events of the past year compel us all to reevaluate and enhance our efforts with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion within our own organizations and in our programming. We look forward to working with Global Ties with the launch of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group among the network this year. On behalf of the Office of International Visitors and the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, I thank Global Ties US for its partnership over the last 60 years. You have raised the importance of exchanges and given a strong voice to citizen diplomacy and the importance of bridging cultures. We are grateful for our strong partnership. We know that community-based members and national program agencies have strong partnerships of your own in your communities and through your networks. These partnerships strengthen the IVLP, providing diverse voices and perspectives and building bridges between Americans far from the Beltway and up-and-coming foreign leaders. This afternoon's keynote session will offer a glimpse into one of these partnerships, and I know that we are looking forward to hearing more. Finally, why does exchange matter to me? Exchange matters to me because I have seen communities and lives transformed by an exchange experience. I look back over my career and I see an IVLP alum who was a young political activist just out of college when I nominated him and is now the Indian ambassador to UNESCO. I remember a young Muslim woman who was inspired to pursue a career in finance based on her IVLP. I watch as another alum uses an irrigation technique to help drought-stricken communities around the world, a technique developed after his IVLP and based on what he saw here in the US. And I can say to myself, and all of you can say to yourselves, what we do for international exchange truly matters in ways large and small. We change lives. Once again, thank you for all that you do. And I'm proud to turn this over to Janet Norton. Janet?
Hello, everyone. And welcome to what I'm sure, and thank you very much, Anne, by the way. Welcome to what I'm sure will be one of the most unique national meetings we will ever experience. The past year brought many opportunities, but also many challenges. To give you a brief glimpse of how we arrived at this year's national meeting format, I began working with Amy Cardis from the Office of International Visitors and Franzi Rook from Global Ties US in late summer of 2020. We had multiple discussions, which continued in December when the full committee convened. Once the holidays were over, we all hit the virtual ground running, and so did those who are presenting during this week's plenaries, breakout sessions, and other opportunities. I can't begin to express enough appreciation to Amy and Franzi and the committee for all the work they did, especially for Amy and Franzi, even before the committee convened. We accomplished in a few weeks what might normally be done over several months in a normal year. I'm very grateful and proud of the job everyone has done and wanted to share and recognize this year's committee. This year's committee members were from the Office of International Visitors, Victor Duncan, Jenny Eisenberg, Oksana Jensen, Katarina Pfeiffer, and Amy Cardis. Our interpreter and liaison representatives were Lisa Fields and Diana Lee. Our CBM representatives, in addition to myself, were Elaine Turcoli from the World Affairs Council of Dallas-Fort Worth, Gabriela Salento from the International Institute of Buffalo, Destiny Logan from Global Ties Albuquerque, Andrea Myers from Global Jacks, and Matt Britton from World Denver. Our NPA representatives were James Horseman from World Learning, Nathan Ekman from Graduate School USA, and Rebecca Taylor from CRDF Global. And from Global Ties US, we had Franzi Rook, Brittany Rock, and Allison Ball. Please take the time this week to thank the committee by giving them a virtual pat on the back, won't you? The decision to make this year's national meeting a virtual one was difficult indeed. I know I will definitely miss the smiles and the camaraderie that the in-person experience always brings. However, consider how many more people from our communities we're able to include because we've gone virtual. I'm sure that many who have attended previous meetings can appreciate the number of times when we've been in a session and thought, oh gosh, I wish so-and-so could be here to experience this. And I hope that many of those people will join us on our journey this week. We were also able to adapt the in-person session proposals to a virtual format. This means that most, if not all, of the wonderful session content you would normally look forward to will still be available. I'm looking forward to regional briefings from our friends at the State Department, breakout sessions on topics like climate change, alumni engagement, community building in a virtual world, global competency training, entrepreneurial ecosystems, plus, of course, the many networking opportunities. It will surely be a busy and informative week. When you have a chance, please give the speakers and presenters at this week's session a virtual pat on the back as well. In reflecting on this year's theme of Exchange Matters, a few things came to mind as I considered what my life as an IVLP programmer has been over the last year. The travel restrictions and physical distance imposed by the pandemic could have reduced the connections and outreach made during a normal year. But we saw opportunities along with the challenges and strove to make virtual programs as effective as possible. because exchange matters so deeply to all of us in the network. Even though travel wasn't an option, the professional resources in our communities didn't stop wanting to meet with international colleagues. So they worked with us to coordinate unique meeting times and environments to be part of these programs, because exchange matters to professional development and sharing. In order to regain the truly personal experience they have with our amazing IVLP participants, our home hospitality hosts became creative in how they opened their homes and hearts to these virtual visitors. Because these wonderful hosts know how much exchange matters, not only to them, but also to the participants from around the world. When we're once again able to meet our visitors in person and be together again in person for the national meeting, we'll do so with a deepened appreciation for the incredible gift that is international exchange and how much it matters, not only to us, but also to the world. We're all still here because exchange matters. And I hope that this week's experiences will help you renew your commitments to this vital program. And now I'd like to invite Xiao Yin Zhao, to join us to introduce our next speakers. Xiao Yin?
Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for that introduction. And hi, everyone. My name is Xiao Yin Zhao. I'm the Executive Director of the World Affairs Council of Kentucky and Southern Indiana. I'm thrilled today to introduce our keynote conversation coming from a place close to our heart in Louisville, Kentucky, the Muhammad Ali Center. The Muhammad Ali Center has been an invaluable partner for the World Affairs Council of Kentucky and Southern Indiana in our efforts to promote the global exchange of people and ideas. Their team can always be counted on to welcome our international delegates and share the inspiring life story of Muhammad Ali. The Ali Center is not only an anchor for the Louisville and Kentucky community, but it embodies the human spirit and strength of the great Muhammad Ali that remains an inspiration for our global community. Today, we'll be hearing from the President and CEO, Donald Lassere, and the Center's first ever Global Peace Laureate, Farah Pandith. Since 2012, Donald Lassere has been responsible for fostering the Center's mission and expanding the educational programs, partnerships, and other outreach initiatives around the themes of education, global citizenship, and gender equality. He also launched the Muhammad Ali Global Humanitarian Awards, designed to inspire and encourage young people worldwide to become actively involved in social justice issues that are impacting their communities and the world. Donald has been a pillar of the Louisville community, serving on the boards of the Louisville Downtown Management District and the Louisville Ballet, while also teaching leadership and organizational behavior at the University of Louisville in the Entrepreneurship MBA program. Since last year, Farah Pandith has been the Center's first ever Muhammad Ali Global Laureate for her proven track record of and commitment to promoting diversity, cohesion, and respect. Farah is a world-leading expert and pioneer in countering violent extremism, and many of you may be familiar with her through the recent book, How We Win, How Cutting-Edge Entrepreneurs, Political Visionaries, Enlightened Business Leaders, and Social Media Mavens Can Defeat the Extremist Threat. Farah was also the first ever U.S. Special Representative to Muslim communities at the U.S. Department of State, and she also served on the National Security Council and the U.S. Agency for International Development in various senior roles for Presidents George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. Currently, Farah is also a senior fellow with the Future of Diplomacy Project at the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at the Harvard Kennedy School, as well as an adjunct senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Given the many events that have occurred since the summer and this past week around racial violence, I cannot think of a more timely and necessary conversation for our network and for all of us working toward promoting diverse voices inclusive communities, and racial justice through international exchange. Now, please welcome Donald Lassere and Farah Pandith of the Muhammad Ali Center.
I would like to welcome everyone to the world-renowned Muhammad Ali Center, where I'm here with my great friend, Farah Pandith. And here at the Muhammad Ali Center, we do a multitude of things around programming and making sure that we live the legacy of Muhammad Ali. And one of those things that we do is how I came to get to know Farah is our Global Humanitarian Awards, where we offer awards to 6 young people, outstanding people from all over the world who are doing great things. As you all probably know, Muhammad was in his mid-20s when he shook up the world with his conscientious objection. And we want people to know that young folks can change the world. And so when we started the Humanitarian Awards, I came to Farah. She was at the State Department, and I said, I need help finding brilliant young people that are changing the world. And Farah, to her credit, found 6 amazing people who got awards based on Muhammad's 6 core principles. And I can't speak how highly I think of Farah, how brilliant she is. And one of the things that Farah is really, really good at talking about is this current divisive society that we're living in all over the world. We are a deeply divided country, and we're a deeply divided world. And so Farah and I, we're gonna talk about that a little bit. One of the things I wanna point out is Farah 6 months ago became our Muhammad Ali Center Global Peace Laureate. And with that, I have a question for you, Farah. What compelled you to accept this role as our Global Peace Laureate?
Well, let me just say, just hearing about the Humanitarian Awards brings a smile to my face. It's one of the highlights of my year to go to the award ceremony and see these amazing young people stand up on a stage in the legacy of Muhammad Ali and talk about what they do. And it is a powerful, emotional experience. But that's really at the core of the laureate. You know, we have to do more, all of us, not just me as this in this honored and privileged role as being the Muhammad Ali Global Peace Laureate, but all of us need to do more to talk about his core values and the conviction that he had about bringing the world together. We are all able to do far more than we do in our daily lives, to be humanitarians, to bring people together. This role is one that was designed with the expectation that we could mobilize new voices, bring people together in new ways, carry his legacy forward in the context of the 21st century when we here in the United States are dealing with a lot, but we are not alone. Countries all over the world are unpacking historic difficulties and challenges. They're looking at the world in new ways. And I think that this role as laureate is an opportunity to find new partners and develop a brand new way of thinking about what we want to do and who we want to be.
Thank you, Farah. And our audience may not know this, but Farah is a world traveler. She's been all over the world representing the United States. And this past year, brought in a sharp focus, the need for racial justice in this country. Farah, how do you think the rest of the world looks at America right now?
It's such an important question, Donald. I think a couple of different things. First is I think many people are confused about what they've seen in our nation, what they're watching on social media platforms, the videos, the conversations. They're confused because I think, and even Americans are confused by what we've seen, okay? But I also think that in that confusion, there's also promise. And I think what they're seeing is voices standing up to try to ask ourselves, first of all, who are we as Americans and what do we stand for? And that ongoing experiment that we keep talking about in terms of America is around this question of identity. And so because that conversation isn't singular to the United States, I think the rest of the world is also seeing a reflection in themselves too about all of these different layers and complications within societies that we've carried with us for a very long time. We are not the only country that has had to deal with racial inequality. We are not the only country that is dealing with conversations about how people pray and who they love and where they come from. But we have an opportunity today to reflect in a very public way, because we can't hide from this. And I think countries are looking at us and wondering, will we get through this? Are the things that we have said about who we are as America really true? And are we able to use our Constitution, which is, in my view, I'm very biased, the best in the world? Will we be able to use our history in a way that actually mobilizes us to come together as a country and break down the us versus them ideologies that are now consistent on so many levels across our nation?
Yes, I think you raised some really, really valid points there, Farah. I'm so excited to talk about this other project that Farah is working on with the Muhammad Ali Center. And it is a commission called the Muhammad Ali Commission on Civility and Compassion. It's going to be a VIP, nonpartisan commission that will aim to chart a bold future for the U.S. in terms of us leading the world. The deliverable will be a report to the Biden administration. And I'm going to ask Farah to tell us a little bit more about the commission, why she's excited to be working on it, and what is her grand vision for what we're going to deliver to the current administration.
One of the things that I can't get out of myself because of all my years in government is sort of, so what, right? So we have this problem, so what are you going to do about it? And so the solution set is really our hope here. We have societal sinkholes that have been exposed in our country. We are in the aftermath of some very deep emotional scarring that is not just about the horrific murder of Mr. Floyd and others, but it is about decades and decades and decades of inequality and difficulty and challenges and injustice, and we could go on and on. But one of the things that is very painful to state is that with all of this difficulty, we also don't know how to talk with each other. We talk at each other. The idea of being compassionate to other human beings has been lost. The idea of speaking with civility, even if you have a different opinion, has been lost. And so as we began to think about Muhammad's core principles, how he conducted himself, he used humor a lot, even in very difficult moments, how we bring people together, we thought it would be a great idea to create a way to put solution sets on the table for policymakers. And so this commission will be an opportunity for us to bring different political viewpoints together, but actually practitioners and artists and cultural icons and historians and others around the same table to talk about civility and compassion, to think about what it will take for our country to repair itself, and what are things that we could do and offer in terms of ideas for those who are in positions of authority. And so this commission, we are very fortunate. It's been kicked off with a grant from the MacArthur Foundation, and we are really very honored to receive that grant. But there's hard work ahead, but I'm excited, Donald, at the idea of pulling together different ideas at a big open table where we can explore solutions for the years ahead.
Yep. So far, you and I have this same idea about what it's going to take to change the country and to change the world. And it all revolves around our youth. How are you going to engage them with the commission and with what you're trying to accomplish with the commission?
Well, one of the things that we all can agree with is that our younger generations, we are the custodians of making sure that the world that we leave for them is is a world in which they can fulfill their God-given potential. And in doing so, it isn't just about very serious issues like climate or the economy or poverty or, good health. It is also about good emotional health. It is also about making sure that they can build bridges with each other to innovate and be creative, and with generations that are, in fact, digital natives. I want to see those voices get connected around the world and explore, the possibilities, the opportunities to think about new things together. So whether this is millennials, whether this is Gen Z, whether this is Gen Alpha, or the generations that come after Gen Alpha, can we think through better ways of building the platforms that allow them to thrive? So with the commission, some of the solutions for sure will be around educational tools that we could sort of think about for these young people, or what needs to happen within neighborhoods and communities to actually advocate for civility and compassion, thinking about future generations. I used to talk about there being a youth quake around the world. When I was special representative to Muslim communities, I was traveling, as you said, Donald, all the time. And I was, even though it was very hard to see some of the circumstances of these young people, I was very optimistic about what was coming because I could hear in their voices and in their outlook, part of it because they're digital natives and part of it because the world has changed. They are not waiting for gray hair and big titles to make change. They have ideas right now that we can mobilize. And so for me, as I think about the responsibility that we have in the commission to think about young people, it is front and center as we think about solutions.
Right. And through your travels, and I'm sure you've heard this expression before, that every time you go to a different country or a different place, you come back a different person. So talk about how international exchange is going to matter for advancing the message of diversity and inclusion. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, listen, I cannot say enough how important it is that we find as many ways as possible to build bridges of understanding and open up dialogue in every possible way. So exchanges is one way to do that. I think one of the strongest components of the U.S. Department of State is our IVLP programs, frankly, and our various other exchange programs where you're taking people from other parts of the world and you're connecting to them with others who are like-minded thinkers, maybe, but also people who might have very different ideas that you've never been exposed to. You're giving them a chance to find a way to talk with each other, to see themselves in a new way, to walk in somebody else's shoes. All of those things happen when you do an exchange. So I think, when I talked in the beginning about breaking down the us versus them ideology, it cannot happen if you're not having a dialogue. And those dialogues, I know in the context of COVID, many exchanges have had to happen in a Zoom-like format. But in a world when we come back to a place where it is safe to travel, it is going to be essential that we scale up, not retract. We scale up the avenues for dialogue and exchange so that we are opening up the aperture of people's minds, but also their emotions so that they can see each other. It's so much easier to hate somebody or to have stereotypes about somebody if you've never talked to them, if you've never experienced them, if you've never been exposed to their culture. This effort to break that down is what exchanges is all about.
Great, thank you. So I think you have a question or two for me, Farah.
I do indeed, and Donald, it's a very hard thing for me to ask because I've had the very good fortune of working so closely with you all these years and know your heart and know how important the work is that you do and the changes that you've made in people's lives. I mean, when you talk to the young people that come through the Ali Center, they are changed and they think about themselves differently. You are in your final, era at the Ali Center and on to other things. I'm just wondering, as you reflect on your time at the Ali Center, what are you most proud of, and what's to come? What are things that the center ought to be thinking about as they put a forward posture in place?
Well, sort of in your question, you answered the question. Because the thing that I'm most proud of is that we've been able to inspire young people to go out in the world and do things that matter. And that is extremely important. And that's something that I'm most proud of. We've have several different programs here at the Muhammad Ali Center that teach young people how to be advocates, how to go out and advocate for their communities and advocate for their friends, their families. And that's important. And so that is what I'm most proud of, that we have these phenomenal programs and this phenomenal staff that will keep the center moving. And now we are really engaged in racial equity. That is so important that it be coming from the Muhammad Ali Center, because Muhammad was a unifier. And to a point you made earlier, Farah, we've got to talk to each other. We can agree to disagree, but it's important that we continue a dialogue, because eventually you're gonna find that commonality. And I had the fortune to be around Muhammad when he was alive. And the one thing I can tell you is that wherever he went, people would come to him and talk to him about all sorts of things, but you always saw that he was a willing listener. He treated everyone the same. They were all important to him. And that's a message that I want to put out to the world, that you can change the world, even if you do it one person at a time.
That's very powerful and so on point with the celebration of 60 years of exchanges in global ties. And I think we should conclude with a message to the wonderful participants in this meeting and offer our congratulations. And I think you've heard both Donald and I speak about the importance of exchanges and why one person, as you said, Donald, makes all the difference. So the one message I have, and I know Donald probably has something to say too, but the one message that I say as I think about your next 60 years is to make sure that you are making the case, not just by your own voices, but use those people who have come through your program to advocate. I am one, and there are many, many others. We need to see you scale up the things that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to how you're making those changes in the years ahead.
And my message is, I'm inspired by what you do, so keep doing what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Donald Lassere and Farah Pandith. We're inspired by what you do and are so thrilled you took the time to be part of our national meeting to share your message about healing divisions, lifting up diverse voices, and being part of the solution for racial equity through international exchange. And thank you to our dear colleague, Xiao Yin Zhao from the World Affairs Council of Kentucky and Southern Indiana. We're proud to call you a friend and a partner. And welcome everyone to the Global Ties US 2021 National Meeting. I'm Katherine Brown, President and CEO. And like Jackie and Anne and Janet said, I too wish we could all be together in person. This meeting is the focal point of our year, our chance to see old friends and make connections, make new connections and reestablish old ones, and to renew our commitment to our collective missions. But despite all the challenges 2020 threw us, here we are together, online, charting our path together. And never before have our missions been more critical, and never before has exchange mattered more than right now. I'm humbled to be working with all of you who have kept this network together and strong this last year. I also want to extend a very warm welcome to our 2021 cohort of emerging leaders. You all are the future of this network. You're the future of public diplomacy, of international affairs and international exchange. and we're so proud and honored to share this experience with you. There's going to be a lot more to say this week, and I'll be talking later with Anne Grimes during our fireside chat. So for now, I'm really just here to say thank you. As Farah said, the work that we do is about people. So I want to take a minute and thank all the people who shaped this meeting. Thank you to our partners at the Office of International Visitors at the U.S. Department of State, to the incredible Anne Grimes, whose leadership this last year especially has been astounding, and to her remarkable deputies, Sana Abed-Kotab and Ali Baski, and to Tom Rathburn. All of them have been committed to your success, and we're grateful to call them colleagues. We're also very grateful to the simply amazing Amy Cardis. We are on the phone, texting, emailing constantly with Amy, who is dedicated, thoughtful, steady, and calm in her support of all members of this network. She never shies away from a challenge when it comes to supporting members. She tries everything. And Amy was our lifeline this last year especially. And while you may not see her during this national meeting, she helped make every minute of it possible. Thank you, Amy. We love working with you. We can't imagine getting through the last year without you. And thank you to all of our other State Department colleagues who are providing briefings on various regional and functional issues, and for helping us make sure that we're aligning international exchanges with moving the ball forward on critical foreign policy goals. Thank you so much to Janet Norton and to the Planning Committee. This team has been extraordinarily creative and committed to providing a substantive program and professional development course as possible online. I also want to recognize our sponsors and exhibitors. Each of them is such an important part of our community, and I'm thrilled they've joined us in this virtual space. Among them are members of our advisory council, hotel partners that are a key part of the IVLP experience, our national programming agency partners, our community-based member partners, and some of the leading institutions in the public diplomacy academic field. First, our ambassador level supporters, the Capital Communications Group, Chastain and Partners, Alan Sharon Durka, Phil Lowinger, World Affairs Councils of America, and Vicente Lopez Ibor Mayor, who sponsors every year our IVLP Alumni Award for Social Innovation and Change. This year we'll be recognizing Decade Award winners tomorrow. And our diplomat level sponsors, Sherry Mueller, CRDF Global, the Darcy Hotel Development Innovations Group, Homewood Suites by Hilton in Washington, D.C., the Institute for International Education, the International Center of Indianapolis, and the International Institute of Wisconsin, Unitas Communications, the Venn at Embassy Row here in Washington, and the World Affairs Council of Seattle, which is celebrating their 70th anniversary this year. And there's so much to see in the exhibit hall. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you will see your NPA and CBM colleagues, in addition to all the hotels that'll be eager to welcome everyone back later this year and early next year. And there's also some mini sessions with the U.S. Institute of Peace, lots of information from the Alliance for National Exchange, USC Center for Public Diplomacy, George Washington University's Institute for Public Diplomacy and Global Communications, and a wide array of State Department and federal agencies from sports diplomacy to the Foreign Agricultural Service. Thank you for being here. Many of them are going to be hosting virtual booth time during exhibitor meet and greet hours. Please check out their profiles for their availability. And thank you to the Global Ties US Board and the Advisory Council for your steady leadership, especially this last year. That includes my chair, who you heard from earlier, Jackie Miller, who's also the Chief Executive Officer of the World Affairs Council of Seattle, and to my vice chair, Patricia Harrison, Director of Professional Exchanges at World Learning, who you'll hear from on Wednesday. And to my outgoing chair, Christopher Washington from Franklin University, who really helped us get through the last year. And to the absolutely phenomenal Global Ties US team. We know the pivot to virtual has not been easy. Creating online meaningful experiences takes painstaking work, but the end result is worth it, as putting this week together definitely has shown us. So thank you to all of our team members you may see facilitating sessions or providing back tech support. Sherry Bennett, Elizabeth Black, Judy Donner, Ivana Escamilla, Sarah Marie Garcia, Dana Hoyes, Seth Joyner, Bjorn Schwarzenbach, Gina Smallwood, Gabriel Torrijos, Mark Weinstein, Ukame Falade, and Jason Terry. And a special thanks to the planning team specifically for this meeting. Stephen Quinn for his excellent work to provide an inclusive and fun exhibitor experience. Stephanie Sutton, who's on maternity leave and we miss, and her astounding communications team, Erica McNamara, Christian Caudill, Amana Tabathon, who worked around the clock to really make sure that this meeting came together. With a special thanks to Allison Ball, our new communications and events manager, who joined us just a few months ago and dove in to make sure that everything worked perfectly. And to Franzi Rook and Brittany Rock for their work with the planning committee to make sure the programs were meaningful, timely, and engaging. I'm extraordinarily privileged to work with such a mission-driven, creative, talented group of professionals. And I can't wait to be back in the office with all of you. Feels kind of lonely here in the math room without you guys. And thank you to all of our members who continue to inspire us. You're the heart of this organization and our mission, which is to power individuals, communities, and nations to build trust and advance peace and prosperity through international exchange. Diplomacy begins with all of you. Thank you for your partnership and trust this last year especially. We're thrilled that all of you are here. Enjoy the week.